Okay, so let's start with a little intro. First of all, my name is Gitanjali Singla. I am a chartered accountant, then I have done US CPA. After that, I have worked with the MNCs, but now at presently I have joined Siminder as a faculty. Now let's see who are the new students. Okay, let's start with the little intro first. Vibha, Srinivas, can you all write like what at present you all are doing? I apologize in advance if I'm not able to read the names properly. Like Kanukula, is it okay the pronunciation? Kanukula, Srinivas, Alan. Okay, Srinivas is from CA background. Okay, then you will find this course really helpful and easy. Okay, Sushma, in finance. Okay, Vibha, that's fine. If you're doing in finance, it will be easy to pick the things. Maharanjan, I'm working professional and pursued MBA finance. Very nice. Alan, I'm currently in my second year bachelor in management studies. Okay, nice. In CME also, what we are doing, not just the costing, but the management part also. So it will help you in your bachelor studies also. I'm a BCom graduate. Wonderful. Okay, Kirti, I did my LLB and ISO. Okay. Ayush is doing BCom honors. Suraj, I'm currently MBA pursuing. Okay, it's coming. Sai Teja, how can I call your name? This is interesting and different. Priyam did hotel management. After like doing hotel management, Priyam, are you working somewhere? So now you are doing CMA. Hope you get something much better than that. Okay, so today what we will do, we will start with the internal controls first. And there are some topics in cost management which are left from the older batch. Okay, so in the end of this lecture, we will be touching some of the cost management concepts. And for all the new joinees, it will be just a revision for you because when we will start with the costing subject itself, we will do this all again. Okay. So now today where we are gonna start is its internal controls. Very general. Who can tell me what are internal controls? What are internal controls? Since I've seen you all are from finance background, MBA background. Okay, Srinivas is writing security system in company like that. Yes, it is one of the internal controls, security systems. Maharanjan is saying to have a control on the organization set standards. Very nice, Maharanjan. It is right. Then Shravan is writing controls executed to make sure that business is in compliance, ethics, and applicable laws. Yes, that is also nice. Very good. So what are internal controls? Ensure compliance with the company's policies. Yes, everything is covered in the internal controls. When there is a person who is running a business, okay, he's running a business, there are so many things he has to manage. Okay, there are so many tasks he needs to do. There are so many regulations, company regulations, society act, so many regulation tax, everything which he needs to follow. Okay, regulations and all. Then what happens, whatever the statements he is showing in the market, there are so many users, different users available, so the information which should be reaching to them, they should be useful plus fair plus true, right? Then what is happening when he is dealing with all these things, there are so many elements, or we can say resources he is managing in his company, okay, in which human resource is one, HR. Then when he is dealing in so many resources, what are the chances? There are risks, more resources, more risks, right? When there are so many risks, he needs to minimize the risks also. So we can say to minimize risks also, again, what is required? Internal controls is required. So there should be a planned rules and regulations, like how the work should be done from the very incorporation of the company, how the things should move, how the documents should move, what are the authorities of different persons, what are the responsibilities of the different persons. Okay, everything is pre-structured, pre-planned. And then what happens at some intervals after 3 months, 6 months, or annually, there is a proper monitoring also for all these plans, which we call for the internal controls. There is proper checking that also falls under internal controls. So in the end, what we are trying to do is we are trying to provide, like if you are dealing in financial information. What is your role? You are trying to provide the financial information which is correct. There is no fraud involved. Okay, there is no manipulation involved. There are no errors in that. Okay, you are trying to make that thing sure. Okay, so now internal controls, they can be in the system, or like I said, they can be through the paperwork, like the rules and the regulations, the division of authorities, the divisions of the responsibilities, everything. For example, one task in one company is done by one person, but then it is checked by the other person. Okay, so what is this simple thing, this simple control ensuring that full control of one transaction is not in single hand. There is division. Okay, it is done by one person but checked by the other person. So if there is any error or the one person is trying to manipulate something, the other person would be able to find out, right? So all this is about internal controls. Now these rules regulations which also fall under internal control, they begin at the very incorporation of the company. They begin at the very incorporation of the company. Like, what is corporate governance? Okay, what we call corporate governance. Through corporate governance also, what we are trying to do is that there are no fraud companies formed. If there is some public companies formed in the market which are issuing shares to the public and they are using the public funds for running the company, in that case, that company shouldn't be a fraud company. All the acts which are done in that company are legally observed, proper external audits are done. So all this fall under corporate governance. So all of you have got your like a Becker's module of internal controls yet to receive. Okay, no issues. I will try to write the maximum on this whiteboard. Then later you can correlate also, but you will be having the link for the online Becker site. Do you have the link for the classes and the materials? Yes, Srinivas is saying yes, ma'am. Yes, you should be having. Okay, still to get the access, Ellen. Okay, some are having, some are not. It's all right. These two lectures today and tomorrow, we will plan in such a manner that I will try to write everything on this whiteboard. Okay, so that it is easy for you understand. Try to make notes. Whatever I am writing, keep on writing on plain sheets or notebook. Hopefully from next week, you will receive your books and the online link for sure. Okay, so now let's start with corporate governance. What is corporate governance? It includes the processes and mechanisms by which company is directed and controlled. Board of directors is responsible for governance. Okay, now there is also a predefined system. One is, first of all, you have to get it incorporated. The company, you have to get it incorporated. Then board of directors, you have to form board of directors. Okay, then they will be the person who will be running your company. Okay, but the company belongs to whom? The shareholders. Shareholders do what? They appoint board of directors. Okay, and auditors for the same. So whenever you are planning to open a company, we are starting from the very beginning. What will you do? You will write articles of incorporation. You will submit articles of incorporation. Okay. Then after that, for the internal processes, how the internal processes will be regulated, you will make bylaws. So at the top, first of all, you will write articles of incorporation. Then the second comes the bylaws. After that, for day-to-day operations, like daily operations, how they are to be done, comes the policies. At number 3 comes the policies and procedures. In articles of incorporation, what we do, we kind of register our company with state government. And when we go and register our company with the state government, there are a pre-defined forms which you have to fill, in which you will write the name of the company, then the name of the people who will be really running it, then their signatures, their addresses, everything, whatever the state government feels is important, they will ask for those information and documents, okay, that you will submit to the state government for the incorporation of your company. Then after that comes the bylaws. What are the bylaws? Here comes the rules and regulations. See, there is a difference between bylaws and policies and procedures. Policies and procedures are the like ways how you will do the things, the procedures of right here day-to-day operations, day-to-day operations. Whereas in bylaws, you will find the more legal terms like the rules, the regulations, okay, and what else like the what are the authority of officers, like these things you will find in the bylaws. Authority of officers, okay, then method of election of officers, all these will fall under bylaws. But the day-to-day operations, like if you're dealing in the manufacturing of something, how the manufacturing will be done, what are the various processes involved, then how from manufacturing it will move to the warehouse, all these things will come under policies and the procedures. Then bylaws, who make these bylaws? These bylaws are like what are the authorities of the officers, what are the works which are to be done by the board of directors, the various CEO, CFO, officers of the company. So all these are determined by the owners. The bylaws are fixed by the owners who are the shareholders. Policies and procedures for day-to-day operations. Obviously, these will be formed by the one who are running the company. We know that board of directors are running, and then the employees are also present. The higher level employees, they will be setting all these policies and the procedures. So now here, what actually board of directors are doing? What they are doing? Board of directors, they set companies' strategic aims and provide leadership to put them in effect, and they whom they will report, who appoints them, so they report to shareholders. So now first of all, let's discuss little bit about articles of incorporation. One thing we have learned, it is filed with the state government, right? Then articles of incorporation will be submit, like we write the memorandum of association and all. What we are trying to provide to the state government, a basic structure, for the company, so that the state government can have an idea like in what products we are going to deal in, how we will run the company. All these things are provided in articles of incorporation. Like for example, so first of all, name of corporation, by which name you will be running it. Then name and addresses of registered agents, of registered agent. Who is the registered agent? For example, something went wrong, the state government, they want to know who is the person whom we can sue. So they want to know the person whom they can take to the court, okay, in case of frauds and all. So you have to mention the name and address of that particular person. Then comes the name and addresses of all incorporators, all those who combinedly are opening the company. It's not that there are total 10 persons who are collectively trying to open one company, but you are providing the details of the 2 persons. In the third point, the details, names and addresses of all the incorporators are required. Then the important point, the fourth point, which is required to be mentioned, which is must, that is the number of shares authorized to be issued. This is the upper limit fixed in the with the state government, which they will allow. For example, this is the money. What actually this is? This is the money company can raise by issuing shares to public. This is the maximum. Okay. Now, can they revise this ceiling? Yes, they can. So, but at first, when you are opening the company, when you will start running the company, when the state government doesn't know how your company will behave, they do not want the public to lose their funds by investing in some company which is not progressing, right? So in the beginning, you have to tell them like this much. You will tell to the company like this. For example, only $1 lakh is the initial limit for public money. Okay, if after 2-3 years they find ki okay, the company is doing well, they can increase this limit also. So this is the initial limit fixed by the state government. Can the information which is provided in the while incorporating that can be amended? Yes. This information is, first of all, write down, rarely amended. Okay, because it is very difficult. It's a long process. You have to file with the company, then it take time. Okay, why limits are provided? For example, suppose today I am thinking to open one company of manufacturing soaps. I do not have experience, but I want to open, I have the money. Okay. Then I thought of like getting public funds also by issuing shares. So I am planning to issue shares on stock exchange. So in that case, what will happen? The state government, it do not want, for example, I just went into the market and I said one share $100. Okay. And I am receiving so many funds. My shares are getting sold. If there is no limit, I may near about sold 1 lakh shares, something like that. Huge money I have received in the beginning. I invested all the money. Since I was a new beginner, I was not able to run the company properly. In 1 or 2 years, my company was in loss. That means I have lost the money which was invested by the public, general public, right? I was not able to run. So the government, they do not want these cases to happen. So initial limit they will fix based on the information you are providing. How many incorporators are there? They will check their experience, everything they will check, and accordingly they will set the limit. Okay, this is the public fund limit you can issue in the very beginning. Okay, so that's why there is a limit. Now, rarely amended this incorporation, because every time you have to go to the state government, you have to write a letter for the amendments. It's really amended, but if there is something material, for example, the incorporator is changed, the person whom you want to sue earlier, you want to change the name of that person. Okay, in that cases, what will happen? You will amend this article of incorporation. Now the second thing comes the bylaws. Already we have written rules, regulations, authority of the officers, methods of election of the officers. All these rules and regulations which helps the company to run in a proper manner will fall under bylaws. So we can say these are what? These are rules for running the company. These are more detailed info than articles of incorporation. Yes. For example, in article of incorporation, you have written that we will form audit committee. Okay, when you were submitting the documents for the corporation, you have written that there will be a separate audit committee. But in bylaws, you will write everything about the audit committee, who are the members, who will be forming the audit committee, how the audit committee will it run independently, then who will select the persons of audit committee, who can remove the persons of audit committee, what if audit committee fails at some time. All these rules will be set under the bylaws in detail. Like we have already written, election of officers, setting their authorities and duties, all this will fall under bylaws. The last one in this comes the policies and procedures. Policies and procedure, they provide structure to day-to-day operations. How will you differentiate between bylaws and policies and procedures? Bylaws, somebody, are you gonna appoint one officer daily? No. Maybe you're gonna appoint one officer in 4 years, 5 years. Okay. So these bylaws, they are for long term. Okay, they are not for day to day. Daily you are not taking the decisions like this. The bylaws, once you have set the authority of one person, it will continue for 10 years, 15 years, right? So all these will fall under the bylaws. Policies and procedures, these can be for monthly also, weekly also. In the beginning you started manufacturing in one way, then after production of 1 or 2 months, you find to change it, you can change it. Okay, all these day to day operations. And this manufacturing, is it happening yearly, like once in a year? No, daily you are manufacturing, daily you are selling, daily operations, you will be dealing in the daily operations. So all those rules and regulations which you make for the daily operations, they will fall under your policies and the procedures. For example, like procedure of sales transactions, how sales will take place in the company, that will fall under policies and procedures. I hope this is clear. Article of incorporation, then bylaws, and then third is the policies and the procedures. So now we will discuss rights and responsibilities within a corporation. Different designations, different responsibilities. Okay, does policies and procedures change frequently? Depends. Mostly what happens when you start in practically when you start running a company. Okay, in the very beginning you will write, okay, we will do sales transactions like this. These are the possible payment methods which are allowed. When you run for 1-2 months, you feel okay, people are preferring Paytm more than the cash or net banking. So accordingly you can make the changes. Then you can make the changes in the discounts available. Standard operating procedures or desk procedures refers to, yes, very right, Maranjan. Standard operating procedures, how you will operate, and desk procedures, yes, these refers to the policies and the procedures. Then comes the rights and responsibilities within the corporation. Okay, obviously in a corporation you make a chart like this is board of directors, then comes the management. In management these are the three categories, then after that one level 1, 2, 3, then further under first one these are the persons who are there. So there is a hierarchy, and then based on this they have different designations provided and different responsibilities, right? So now we will discuss about the board of directors, how board of directors are placed. Board of directors, they provide strategic direction. For example, when you're manufacturing something, if example decision is to be taken, you want to be cost leader or you want to invest in product differentiation, this will be decided by board of directors. Okay, they provide us, they guide us. So the number one, we can say strategic direction, where we have to reach and how. Second, they make sure that there is accurate financial reporting. In reporting, proper disclosures. It makes sure, BOD makes sure that when you are a public company, all the disclosures which are present in all the documents like the financial reports or the taxation reports you are submitting or the excise document you are submitting, there are proper disclosures. Then they manage the officers, management of officers who will fall under these high level officers, CEO, CFO. Okay, so BOD is the one who is appointing them also. Okay, if there is something they will change them also. So management of officers, their compensation, everything is fixed by the board of directors. Then comes the declaration of dividend. Declaration of dividend is also done by board of directors. And if alteration of bylaws, that will be done by BOD. Then officers compensation, again that will fall under the BOD. I hope everybody has written this. Now who all are board of directors? Who will be the board of directors? Now, to be a board of director, you can be, yes, you can be employee of the company also, okay? Or you can be some external party also. For example, government agency, okay? So if you have a question in the exam that only the persons who are working in the company, they can act as the board of directors, is it right? Only the persons who are working as the employees of the company, only they, like officers, CEO, CFO, only they can act as board of directors, is it right? Is my saying right? If I'm saying no, someone external party, some external party, they, we can appoint them as also one of the board of directors. For example, when you will do that, one is this case, okay, employee of the company and all. Suppose there is a person or there is a company who is expert in running a particular type of manufacturing unit. You would like to have that CEO or CFO of that particular company as a board of directors for your company also. Okay, so that is also possible. Now, one very important point here, board member will not be liable to corporation. It's very important for acts performed or decisions made in good faith. Good faith in a manner director believes to be in the best interest of corporation. Now, since we are providing BOD with such an authority that they can take the strategic decisions for the company, if they want our company to be a cost leader, accordingly, they will plan the bylaws, the policies, the procedures, everything. So in the end, with for every failure, we cannot say that board of director is liable and they should be charged with fine and all. Okay, this is not possible. For example, when you were running a company, they made one investment, board of directors, they made one investment which they think is gonna be profitable, is required also, and there was nothing to doubt about that investment. They invested money in that. After 1 year, maybe the economic circumstances change everything, and they incurred a huge losses. The whole investment was gone. In that case, you cannot make the board of director liable to pay back that money which is gone. Okay, because they all the decisions they took for the investment, that was in good faith for the good of the company. Later on, if the circumstances have changed and they were not able to earn that much, we cannot make them personally liable for those things. Okay, otherwise what would happen? If you will make liable, what will happen? Nobody will be ready to become the board member. Such a big responsibility they have, they take so much big decisions in day-to-day life. So a person like you and me, when we act at a senior post like a CFO of the company or something, so we should be able to distinguish between these things, like in which case we can say yes, this decision was wrongly taken by the board and it is unethical, when we can say that. Okay, then the next one is the like audit committee. One is this board of directors we have discussed. Now comes the audit committee. Okay, again, audit committee is what? It is like it is made out of BOD only. Okay, audit committee. It is made out of BOD only. How they make sure? They make sure that three or more, minimum three should be outsiders in BOD. Like we discussed, like we earlier discussed, in BOD, it can be a employees of the company plus outsiders also, right? Board of director is a combination of employees of the company plus outsiders. Here in audit committee, they make it compulsory that at least three, more is also possible, at least three members should be out of outsiders. Three members should be out of outsiders. Whom we call outsiders? Who are these outsiders? These are the directors, outside directors who are neither employees nor part of management and who do not have financial interest in the company. How can you be related to a company? Either you work for the company or you invest money in the company. So in this case, outside directors are the one who do not invest in the company, who have not invested in the company, who are not acting at any managerial post, or neither they are employees of the company, nothing. They are not related to the company at all. Why we want three outside board members? Three outside board members are required to maintain the independence of audit committee, so that all the decisions like appointment of external auditor, removal of external auditor, all these decisions are taken by the audit committee independently, unbiasedly. Okay, so that's why they need three at least outside directors. Ayushi, are you not able to hear me properly? Why am I unable to hear, ma'am? All others are able to hear and see properly here. The whiteboard is visible. Why minimum 3 BOD are supposed to be? Can anyone help? I did this 3 times. Okay. Okay, so somebody was typing this question like why at least minimum 3 members should be the outsider BODs in the audit committee. I have made you write also that to maintain the independence of the audit committee, so that their decisions are not affected by the like if you are related to a company, you will be biased in some of the decisions. Okay, so to overcome those things, they want 3 independent board members, so that the so who appoints the external auditor? That is the main function of audit committee. Doesn't happen again. At least audit committee appoints external auditor. Okay, Kirti, thank you. So audit committee, the main role of forming the audit committee is that whatever, how the company is working, somebody can at least tell us independently and without any bias that what are the wrongs which are happening in the company, how they can correct it, whether the financial statements which are presented, they are showing the true and the fair information is provided to the users. Finally, board of directors, from those board of directors you select somebody and you form one audit committee, and audit committee now have different roles, out of which one is very important, that is the appointment of the external auditor. Okay, then second comes the audit committee assures that auditor, the one external auditor, is independent of company. Means whenever they appoint external auditor, it can be any CPA firm or something, that CPA firm shouldn't be the case that they are providing us some other services also. Okay. For example, they are also providing us the legal services or audit, other than the audit, other services, valuation services they are providing. In that case also, what will happen? That external auditor is a kind of related to the company and he will not be able to provide proper judgments. So again, it is the duty of audit committee to make sure that the auditor they are appointing is independent of company. Then audit committee also reviews the scope of audit. Detailed investigations are required or not, in which parts are very sensitive and critical, in which case we are not able to share the whole information with the external auditor. All these things are also decided by the audit committee. Then, then they ensure that any recommendation provided by auditor is given proper attention. Suppose you are working as an external auditor for some company, okay, and you find out that when the purchases are made, the procedure is not proper. The purchases can be made at lower cost from some other vendor, which is also available in the market. So this can be changed. The supplier can be changed or negotiated, or the existing supplier can be negotiated. In that case, as external, you can just recommend. Okay, you cannot put it in your report, the opinion you will give, because in opinion you just give opinion for about the fairness of the information provided. Okay, or you tell if there is no misstatement present in the financial information, that is what you give opinion on. This is some recommendation you want to give, that in the open market you can make the purchases like this and that, everything. Where you will go? You know that as an external auditor you have to go to the audit committee, because audit committee will make it sure that all the recommendations which you are providing to the purchasing department, they are giving it importance and attention. The next point, helps solving disagreements related to accounting treatment. Is it formed by the, no, it is not formed by the government, the audit committee. It is formed by the board of directors only, or the shareholders will select, proper meetings are conducted, and audit committee is formed out of the board members. Then comes the sixth part, help solving disagreements related to the financial treatment, accounting treatment. For example, the accountant of the company, who the persons who are working on the financial information, they are treating one item maybe as an asset and then they are depreciating it. When the external auditor was checking, he found that this should have been directly gone to the income statement and it should have been expensed in the year the cost was incurred and should not have been treated as an asset. So who will sit and decide whose treatment will be followed from now on, how they will resolve the disagreements? Audit committee will intervene. Then whom audit committee will report? They will report to the persons who select them. Yes, so they will report to BODs and stockholders also when necessary. From all these things, since they are solving the disagreements, they are trying to make sure that external auditor is able to put their points. What actually audit committee is trying to do? They are trying to act as a intermediary between internal auditor, what internal auditor is saying, what management is doing and saying, and external auditor. Last point in this, seventh point, which is also very important these days, Audit committee establish procedures to accept reports of complaints. These days, it is very important and is required. Like you must have heard about whistleblowers. How, without disclosing the identity of the whistleblower, how the company can take the actions also, they can make the corrections also. Okay, so there are established procedures to accept the reports of the complaints, which are again, these procedures are established by whom? These are established by the audit committee, that how they will deal with the complaints. But is audit committee gonna take the complaints of HR and all? No. So what are the type of complaints we are talking about here? For example, the complaints are related to audit, the complaints related to accounting or internal control issues. Okay, what are the whistleblowers? In a company, for example, the workers or the employees who are working at lower levels, who are involved in day-to-day transactions. For example, you are in a company, you are uploading the financial information, you are making uploading the transactions in the software. When you were uploading the transaction, you find out that the some of the transactions were without number or something, and they are coming from one particular person only. Okay, who was the recording, who is providing you the data, it is coming from one particular person. Then you wait for 3-4 days, then you came to know that these transactions are dummy transactions. Actually these sales or these purchases have not taken place. So in that case, how will the higher authorities know about these things? Only the persons who are dealing at the lower level, they would be able to know. And you secretly, you went to the audit committee and you secretly complained about it, that when you are putting the transaction, you notice that some transactions, they look fine, there are signatures, also everything is fine, but the numbers were missing. And when you checked in detail, these are the dummy transactions, and you put a complaint. Nobody knows who complained. Okay, they will not disclose your name, but they will take the action, the audit committee, and you will be known as the whistleblower, the one who actually tells that something wrong is happening. Okay, is this clear? Audit committee. Okay, now is board present all the time? We all always see that there is a monthly board meeting, there is a quarterly board meeting. Okay, so when the board of members are actually present, for example, your board is having 10 board members, they are present monthly. So one day they are having a meeting and 10 BOD members are present. Is this sufficient to run a company, to have a close look at the company? No, you need somebody who is present there in the company daily for 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours. Okay, who can check, who can keep an overview or the look over the overall functioning of the company. So what will the board of directors do? They will appoint officers. Here I'm not talking about lower level officers. Who are these officers? These are the main persons who are the working minds of the company, like CEO of the company or CFO of the company. All these officers came into the picture because they actually work daily for the company and provide details to the board of directors. Whereas board of directors are not available on daily basis. Board of directors, they provided a strategic direction. Remember, we wrote they provide a strategic direction. But how to make this strategic direction work, okay, and successful, this depends on the CEOs and the CFOs of the company, the implementation part. So now comes in hierarchy, the officers. Officers are the individual agents or the employees who conduct day-to-day operations. They work for the company. Who select them? Who select them? We know, selected by BOD, Board of Directors. Who can remove them? The one who selects, removes. So who will remove them? Removed by Board of Directors. Important point, they are not appointed by shareholders. They are not appointed by shareholders. When we talk about the board of directors, it was, and when you were forming the audit committee out of board of directors, we said that shareholders also play a little role. They can also say, okay, this person will become the board of director. because they appoint board of directors, then selecting a committee also they can play a role. But when comes the selection of CEO, CFO, the officers of the company, the shareholders do not play any role. Their authority ends with the appointment of the BODs and the audit committee. After that, board of directors is the person who appoints, removes the officers. This CEO and CFO, they are what? They are the highest authority. Okay, they are the highest authority officers of the company. They work for the, like, strategic direction is provided from the BODs. Then they write the visions, the vision, mission, and goals of corporation. Based on the strategic direction, for example, the strategic direction, like we discussed earlier, is provided is a cost leadership. The company, the board of directors want to become cost leader. They want to provide the product at very low cost in the market, the lowest in the market. So in that case, then CEO, CFO, according to this, the low cost, they will set the mission, goal statements, everything. Like in one month, what should be the learning curve of the employees? Okay, so that more is manufactured in less time, it will reduce your labor cost. Okay, if there is more learning curve, good learning curve, material wastage will also get reduced. So all these things will be done by the CEO and the CFOs. After CEO, CFO comes the now officers, they will appoint managers at different levels. So who will appoint managers? Appointed by, who will tell me? Just generally, like we are discussing the concepts, managers are appointed by, who will appoint the managers of the company? CEO, CFO. Yes, very right, Ayush. That means who will appoint them? Officers. Can I write BODs? No. Why? They do not have the authority now. The board of directors, they do not have the authority now to appoint the managers, because they have already delegated the authority to whom? Officers. If now again board of directors will intervene in this appointment of little managers also, what will happen? There will be a conflict of interest also, and fights will also be there. Somebody will say, I want to select this person, the other will say, no, it should be as board is saying. To avoid all these things, once you have delegated your responsibilities, now let the others do it. So now managers are appointed by the officers. I saw top management. See, after officers, the management part is coming. These managers, they will form management of the company. So officers, CEO, CFO, they will appoint the managers. The management of the company is done by the managers. So as a manager, what will they do? They will design, implement, maintain internal controls. So, okay, finally, maintenance, implementation, and design of internal controls is lying with whom? It is lying with the management. It is lying with the management, the managers. They are, it is their duty. Then the second thing they are responsible. First is design, implementation, maintenance of internal control. Second, preparation and fair presentation of financial statements. This will also fall under the duty of management. We have discussed about shareholders, the one who are investing in the company, then the board of directors, then the audit committee, then comes the officers. But imagine the main thing about internal controls, which we will discuss in detail. It lies with the financial statements. Then now, since management is doing all these things, the implementation of internal controls, presentation, what happens? And they are doing day-to-day operations also. They are more involved into day-to-day operations. So if someday the manager feels, okay, this procedure needs to be changed a little, can they change it? The sum of the procedures? Yes, they can change it if the officers will provide them the Maharanjan, from where, what the last thing you heard? Where would I will repeat it. Okay, means the managers part, the management part I should repeat. The management part I will start again. Managers, the officers, they further appoint managers which become the management of the corporation. So managers are appointed by officers. Once the duty is delegated from shareholders to board of directors, from board of directors to the officers, now officers are responsible for the appointment of the managers. Managers are the one who will design, implement, maintain the internal controls, preparation and fair presentation of financial statements. These two major tasks of internal controls and is done by the management of the company. So in the end, now I will just ask the questions. You're welcome. Let's see who elect and remove board of directors. Let's see who can answer. Think and answer. Who elect and remove board of directors? Shareholders. Very nice. So the hierarchy is clear in everybody's mind, right? Second question. Who distribute dividends? Who distribute dividends? Board of directors. Yes. Everybody is writing board of directors. Perfect answer. Why not shareholders? Why not shareholders? Anyone who can tell, why not shareholders? Why dividend distribution is with the board of directors? Dividend, we have to provide dividend to the shareholders. How can I myself provide, instead of 8%, then I will select 20%, right? So in dividend distribution, first step is the declaration of dividend, right? Declaration of dividend is like when and how much dividend will be provided to the shareholders. That declaration is 100% done by the board of directors, no interference by shareholders. Okay. Yes, they are also getting the part of the distribution. They have no say in that. Now, all these things which we have done is, this falls under corporate governance. See how many rules, regulation, bylaws, and how a particular hierarchy is already set. Like there should be audit committee, there should be board of directors, then the management's roles and responsibility. Everything is pre-planned. Okay. Even then, there are some cases like before 2002, if you will Google also, there are some companies like Enron, Tyco, MCI in America. What happened? These companies, they were presenting something in the financial statements which was not true. Based on those financial statements, the users of the financial statements, like the banks, they were providing loans to them, and the shareholders, they were investing more. They were like very eager to took the preferential allotment also, because they were thinking that company is going into huge profits, and also they will be earning a lot of dividends. Shareholders are electing the board of directors. So how we can ensure and avoid influence on the dividends from them? Okay, very right question, Maharanjan. Okay, in this case also, why there is a set rule that the board of directors shouldn't be just the employees of the company. Okay, again, whenever you will go for the incorporation of the company, Maharanjan, they will tell you like these are the number of the directors who should be the outsiders, unrelated persons to the company. And then whenever you will try to take the decisions of the dividend and all, that will be with the majority of the voting. For example, there are 3 shareholders is selecting everybody, that is fine. But then what happens? The board of directors who are outsiders, who are unrelated to the company, we are assuming, and they are supposed to take independent decisions. Why would they be happy in providing you 20%? They are not getting anything. Okay, they have no interest in the company. There is no amount invested in the company. They are just providing their knowledge and experience to your company and acting as a board of directors, and they are just getting one fixed remuneration. So they will just take the try to take the independent and the right decisions. So if there are 10 members in the board of the directors, the outsiders are, that's why there is a limit for the insiders, the employees ratio, that only this percentage of the board of directors can be the related, others have to be the outsiders. When you will go for 100% voting or majority voting, automatically the decisions will be the right and the ones required for by the company. Okay, So all these frauds were happening. Okay. Then the company went into the losses, and the people, the public who have invested their funds, their savings, they were all crying and shouting. Then what comes in picture is the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, it came into picture. Now, from this example only, it is clear because they wanted that somebody should be there who provide an independent opinion on the financial statement, whether financial statements are presenting the true and the fair picture, whether the internal controls are present in the company or not, to avoid the frauds and all. So what comes into picture? Sarbanes-Oxley Act, to whom you all must have heard they call SOX. So now we will read the provisions of this SOX. When is this SOX applicable? When you are dealing in public funds again. How will you deal in public funds? When you will issue shares, and that too on a stock exchange. If you are issuing the shares of your company on stock exchange where people can buy them and you can use their funds, in that case, you are required, mandatorily required to follow Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Now, what are the provisions in Sarbanes-Oxley Act? First of all, it includes creation of public company accounting oversight board. First of all, in SOX, they formed a public company accounting oversight board, to whom we also write PCAOB. PCAOB, they formed a board. This board will ask for the details from the companies, how their documents, their financial information, which kind of shares they are planning to issue, how much funds they have received, everything this board will be now regulating. They have formed a board, Public Company Accounting Oversight Board. This board not only checks the working of the public companies, but also public firms. What are the public firms now? Like the CPA firms, who are providing the fair information, E&Y, PwC, their functioning is also checked by this board nowadays, Public Company Accounting Board. Because, for example, the company is not providing good information, but this CPA firm, it is saying, it is issuing a unmodified opinion, means it is saying that the fair and the true picture is presented by the financial statements, but which was not the case actually. So in that case, to overcome these examples, like to overcome all these things, what they have planned, they have created a public company accounting oversight board, which sees the functioning of the public companies and the public companies also, and the public auditing or accounting firms also. Okay, this is the first provision. Then comes the second provision under this. SOX has formulated a board. Then SOX is saying that expanded disclosures by corporations, more disclosures are now required. Then specific representations required by officers of public companies. Specific representations are required from the officers of the public company. These representations can be on anything. Like, for example, this company is making a preferential allotment. In that case, when you are making a preferential allotment under SOX, it can say that to the board, first of all, show what are the shares you are issuing under preferential allotment, who are the persons who will be getting it, in total, what is the number, everything. This representation can be asked from the officers. Then comes the fourth point, harsher, suppose if you are doing something wrong, harsher penalties for frauds. Then they see significant internal control provisions. significant internal control provisions. Gone are the cases like in the past, if you do not have any biometric, like we can say barcode reader or the biometric recorder at the gate, and the entry is allowed to everyone. In the past it was okay in case of public companies earlier, but nowadays it is mandatory. After SOX, what is happening, it is mandatory. If you are having the sensitive information of the persons or the public, then you have to protect it. So you have to have the internal controls in place. It is a board formed. It is a board formed by the, we can say, the under the SOX. It is not by the government, we can say. For example, like other acts are also there. Whenever a act came into existence, like you can say that also, like the other one, there is one Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. There is one Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. In that case, this act was actually, I think the president of US at that time was Bill Clinton, who supported this particular act. Similarly, when SOX was there, the who will be saying that SOX is invented? Government. And then the, like we are saying, there are big companies who are doing the audits and all. Then there are some different like customer protection acts are there. And there are so many committees who are dealing in the protection of the consumers, in the protection of the persons who are investing the money. Then the main bank of US, maybe he may also be involved. And together in a collaboration, they supported SOX at that time. It is not just by the government. They supported SOX and they all suggested that a board should be created. This is an independent board. Then one independent board is made, which will now look after all the things. Are you understanding? It is not just that one government, it is passing one act and the board is constituted. No, it's not like that. The ones who are affected by the frauds, it can be banks, all they get together and they try to form one board. Now, if you will go in detail that who are all present in the board, that then you will come to know that yes, the main banks, they are also the members of this board. Okay, then the SEC is also the member of this board. So there is a collaboration of various higher level units. Then now we will read more about this PCAOB. It is must. First of all, who looks after this board? There is a board created. Somebody should be there for to look after the functioning. This is looked after by SEC, Security Exchange Commission. It is governing this board. Okay, SEC is the one who is governing this board. Then it is not there that once the board is formed, the members will be the same. No, the members keep on changing. Maybe after 5 years, 6 years, there will be a change. But the patron is fixed. Members can change, but the patron is fixed. And the fixed member is that out of 5 members, there are 5 members. It is must that the 2 members of this board should be CPA. It is must. And the other 3 non-CPA, it is also must. So in this PCA board, 2 should be CPA and 3 should be non-CPA. Now this board, what this board do? It oversees the audit of public companies, oversees the audit of not only public companies, the important thing, accounting firms. What are the various famous accounting firms? We all know EY, PwC. Then third is issues accounting standards for public companies, enforces compliance with its rules, standards, SOX, laws, with everything. It makes sure. What are the other duties of PCAOB? Register public accounting firms that prepare audit reports for issuers. Again, important point here, issuers. Issuers are again the companies who are issuing the public shares. Okay. So in that case, the audit reports, if are provided by a CPA firm to the issuers, then that CPA firm should be registered with the PCAOB. It is mandatory now. Okay. Then establish rules relating to preparation of audit reports for issuers. Before SOX, what was happening? We were just using the auditing standards which are provided, and accordingly, the auditors were forming their audit report. But now, since SOX is in picture, that in SOX, what happens in some cases, in some companies, they ask the detailed version of the report. Okay, like they can highlight some of the points, like if you are doing the dealing in these particular transactions like remuneration to the directors and all, provide us the various details. Okay, that can be possible in this case now. Then third is they can conduct, since they are the regulatory board now, they can conduct inspections, investigations, and the disciplinary proceedings concerning registered public accounting. So in the first part, they are saying register who prepare. The one who are preparing, they should also be registered with the board. Second thing is they are saying once you should be registered, how to prepare audit report, that is also now governed by this board, means rules to prepare, or we can say. Then the third is the investigation part. So now overall what we have learned, that this board is not only just focusing on the company itself who is preparing the report, but also on the firm who is preparing the audit report. The firm who is preparing the audit report, he should be registered, or it should be registered also. It should be having a proper procedure, which is also checked by this board now. Okay, how to prepare, then it can go and investigate also how the work is done. So this is about PCAOB. I hope it is clear to all about this board. Is it clear? So now let's move on to the second part of this SOX. It's a very important. Okay, sir. Oh, we have written a Public Company Accounting Oversight Board. PCAOB, Public Company Accounting, Public Company Accounting. We are dealing with the accounting of public companies. So public company accounting, and this board will oversee. So oversight board. Now under SOX comes the section 201, prohibited services. In this section, it tells that registered public accounting firm that perform SEC audits. SEC audit means the audit of the public companies, cannot do the services for same client. Okay, so there is a list now. In the list, he will tell you that if you are acting as a public as a auditor of the company, if you are acting as an auditor of the public company, you cannot provide them bookkeeping services. Okay, you cannot provide them actuarial services. You cannot provide them internal audit services. You cannot provide them legal services. You cannot act as a broker or dealer or investment banker. You cannot provide any kind of expert services. So that means no valuation services. So that means if you are doing the external audit for one particular public company, you cannot provide any other service to that company. Okay, and if you are already providing valuation services, these services to that particular company, do not accept the SEC audit for that particular company. You would have to say that I'm not eligible to do the audit because I'm already providing some other service to that particular company. Is it okay? But there is only one service which is permitted only one service which is permitted, that is the tax service. You can provide tax service if pre-approved. Now again, pre-approved by who will approve it? If it is in your company, who will approve this service, this tax service from the audit firm? This tax service from the audit firm, who should be pre-approving it? Just think logically. Whose approval is required? No, in your company. No, since out of board of directors, you have already formed one committee, that is the audit committee. No owner, CFO, no, yeah, audit committee. Srinivas is right, audit committee. When you are allowing some firm to do the audit of your company, and then you want to provide, you want to ask them for tax service also, take the it should be pre-approved by the audit committee. Ask the audit committee, this firm is providing us the audit services, but I want the person in this firm is really a good tax expert. Can we take the tax service also from this particular firm only, that particular person only? If audit committee says yes, then you can take the tax services. This is the only service allowed. Yes, audit committee of the company. I am a company. Okay, my company, I have a ABC company. There is this one firm here. Think like this. There is one firm. It is doing external audit for my company. The person here, Ram, he is a tax expert in this firm. I do not want any bad tax advice, so I will go to the audit committee. I went to the audit committee and I asked them, since already the external audit is going from this firm, but I need a tax advice on particular thing which is related to our company, and I want really good advice. So can I contact Mr. Ram? And if the audit committee will say yes, you can, because audit part is controlled by audit committee. If only audit committee will permit me, yes, you can take the tax advice, it will not affect the external audit, then I will go. If the audit committee feels no, if you will take the tax advice, there are many particulars in the financial statements which will get affected, it may say no. Okay, so whose advice is required? Audit committee. At present, we are discussing only for US. All the things which we are discussing here, now SOX is applicable. Now it depends. Okay, in US, they have made it mandatory, okay, for the public accounting companies. In some other country, now you have to see, is SOX application compulsory, mandatory? If in that country also the SOX applicability is compulsory, then obviously under SOX, they have to form PCAOB. Okay, so now depends country wise how their laws related to this say. Okay, we were discussing about the section 201 prohibited services. Then comes the section 203 audit partner rotation. What is this? Is rotation of external auditor partner. Rotation of external auditor partner. This rotation is fixed every 5 years. Every 5 years from engagement. Why this thing is required? Suppose there is one person, Mr. Bhushan, who is acting as an external auditor for your company, and he is the one who is coming every year. First year, he will be unbiased. Second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year. When he is coming every year, he is checking your accounts. He will get familiar to the employees of your company, to the details of your company, and he will start feeling related. And if after 5-6 years there is something wrong there, he may say, okay, let's avoid this. In 5 years it hasn't happened, in the 6th year it is happening, let's ignore it. Okay, so over the term, the auditor, the person individual, he would be able to maintain the relation with the company in order to avoid those things, in order to again have a unbiased decision on the financial statements. The SOX says that there should be a rotation of external auditor partner. That means if in a CPA firms, okay, in a CPA firms is a collaboration of 10, 20 CPAs maybe, okay. So in that case, if the one individual was coming for 5 years, either you can change that person, or you can have a connection with 1 or 2 CPA firms also. For the first 5 years, this CPA firm is doing the audit. The next 5 years, the other, you have to select some other audit firm maybe. Okay. So this is what is written in the section 203, that the same individual person shouldn't be doing the audit of your company after 5 years at least. It should be changed. Now, what is the rotation means? For example, in your hand, for example, there is a CPA firm. There are 4 individuals in it. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this year audit is done by this person. He is the one who is doing the audit. After 5 years, you are electing this 4th person who will be conducting the audit. Yes, India. Yes, in India, the whole CA firm goes into. So it depends. But in section 203 in US, they have written the rotation of external audit partner. They have not written the external firm. Okay, the audit partner. So in a CPA firm, there can be a lot of CPAs working. Who are the CPA partners? The ones who form the firm, right? We are talking about those particular. For example, in the CPA firm, there are only 4. So if this is the person who is doing for the first 5 years, then this person can also be selected for the next 5 years. Okay. Similarly, this is about 1 CPA firm. You can have 1 CPA firm, 2 CPA firms. First 5 years, this person is doing. Then after 5 years, this person. Then again, this person. So there is a rotation. Okay, Ayush is saying, ma'am, may you please repeat section 203? Okay, I will repeat it. What is a rotation? Okay, ma'am, Ayush is saying SEC is also government. Yes, it is a agency of government only. SEC, Security Exchange Commission, SEC. It is a agency of government. It is an agency of government which deals or which regulates stock exchange, which regulates stock exchange market. Okay, I will repeat this section 203 again. Section 203 is saying rotation of audit, not the firm, audit partner. Okay, this rotation should be after 5 years. Means first 5 years a person is doing the audit. After that, for the next 5 years, he cannot do. For next 5 years, you will select somebody else. Then again, you can come back to the same person. So you can keep 2 partners, okay, and provide the cooling off period in between. Okay, so rotation is must. Otherwise, what will happen? Otherwise, if there is only one person who is providing the opinion on your financial statement, that person cannot be, if there is no cooling off period, what will happen? Biased decisions will be there. For example, this year I audited the statement. Next year, if something is missed in this statement, will I report in the second year? I cannot repeat my mistake. I will not disclose my own mistake in second year. Similarly, after 3, 4, 5 years, when in the 6th year somebody else will came, what will happen? That person will check in detail, and if something is wrong here, he will definitely mention. That's why cooling off period is required. Really, I'm not able to understand, but ma'am, when is 2 consecutive terms of 5 years? What do you want to ask? Okay, the cooling off period is 2 years. For example, 5 years you have given, then the cooling off period is 2 years. Let me check once. It is separate. I'm just reading the latest SEC rules, okay? Let's check particularly how much is 5. Earlier it was 7 years, but now it is 5 years. Okay, after 5 years, rotation is required. Cooling off period is 2 years. Okay, but then comes the lead partner term or concept is also there. Lead partner, if we will go into detail, for our CMA purpose, it is the 5 years rotation which is required, and then some cooling off is required. Okay, and the other point which is very important is that like in India, the full form cannot do, but there the partners can there. But in CPA, there is one more thing, more concept, lead partner term. If the lead partner was doing the audit of 5 years, what happens in this case? When the lead partner is going, he is having the influence over the now secondary partner who will be doing the audit for the next year. In this case, rotation between the partners is not allowed. Are you able to understand this point? For example, let's see this. There is ABC firm. Okay, A, B, C. Earlier, they were all equally relevant. Earlier, B was doing the audit, okay, for 5 years. B was doing the audit. Now, next 2 years, A did the audit. Then again, B can do the audit for 5 years or 3 years, whatever time he took. Okay, he did the audit for 5 years. Lead partner term says, for example, when we checked in detail, we found out that A is the lead partner. He is the one actually who is running the firm. He is the one, and B and C are the secondaries. B and C equally hold, but they are the secondaries. If for 5 years B was working, after 2 years cool off, A can work. After 2 years cool off, A can work. But if A was the one who was working for 5 years, then B and C cannot work, because A is in a position where he can influence the judgments of B and C. In that case, lead partner term, the audit cannot be done by B and C. Is this point clear? Ayush, the cooling off period is 2 years. I have written here the cooling off period is 2 years. Okay, we'll start with one example again. Okay, there is XYZ firm. Okay, XYZ, they are all equal partner. This is the case 1. Now comes the second case in which X is the lead partner, Y and Z are the equal partners. Okay, there is one company, Crame. X was doing the audit for the Crame. In this case, X was doing the audit. He can do for 5 years. 6th year, Z did it. Z can do. When you appoint an auditor, why would you want to again revise the contract and all? For next 5, the cooling off period, as it is written here in the SEC, is 2 years. Means then for 2 years Z can do. Then again you can rotate to X. But normally when you will appoint Zina, you will ask him to do for the longest period, that is the 5 years only. Why you want to again change the agreement, all these things? If somebody you have appointed, then you will ask him to do 5 years only. Otherwise, provided legally is the 2 years. Okay, then 2 years cooling off period, then again X can do the audit. In second case, when X is the one who is the leading partner and he can influence the decisions of Y and Z. In that case, if earlier Y was doing the audit, then 5 years, then you can move on to X. Yes, X can do after 5 years. But if already X was doing the audit, you think Y would be in a position to say that X is not able to find out this particular point, or there is a misstatement in that Y cannot say that. So in that case, to Y, the audit is not allowed only. Y cannot do only audit. Then after X, the company, Crame company, if the leading partner was doing, it has to look for some other firm. In that case, it will have to look for some other firm. Is this clear? Now, next comes the section 204. We are discussing about SOX. So this section we are reading, audit partner rotation. Section 203 will remain same, whether you are doing CPA, CA, whatever you are doing, it will remain the same. So 5 years, then cooling off for 2 years, it will remain the same, SOX section. Then comes the section 204. Registered firms must report to audit committees. Registered firms means the firm of the external auditor. The registered firms should report to audit committees. Section 204 of SOX is saying that they should report to the audit committee. The services are pre-approved by audit committees. We have discussed that also. The tax service is pre-approved by the audit committee. Then the firm will provide the services. Then registered firm should report to the audit committee. And what all they should report? Number one, they should report the critical accounting policies and practices to be used. They should report alternative accounting treatments discussed with management. Okay. When you are acting as an external auditor in some company, what happens? You may find, okay, the other way is also possible. The other accounting treatment is also possible, like in overheads and all. Then you went to the management team and you told them that we can record this transaction like this also. Okay. Then you should report that part also, the alternatives available to the audit committee also. The third thing is material written communications between audit firm and management. When we were discussing about the audit committee, we discussed that audit committee act as an intermediary between the internal auditor, external auditor, and management. This is how the audit firm is supposed to write to the audit committee everything. So obviously it is an intermediary. How? Every written communication between audit firm management, it shouldn't be the case that the audit committee is not aware of it. They have to send the audit committee also. Then written communication will follow differences, or management letter will also come here. If there is some letter given by the management, that you have to report to the audit committee. If there are some unadjusted audit differences, that also you have to report to the audit committee. That time we were discussing the audit committee as it is given under the corporate governance. Okay. Now, section under SOX also, there is a section 301. This is not in your books, but it is important to know. Okay. There is a section 301 which tells you about the audit committee under SOX also, and the duties of the audit committee. Audit committee hires, compensate, oversees the work of independent auditor. Okay. The second, tracks, records. You all write this because it is not there in the Becker's book. Record, follow complaints about internal controls or auditing issue. Third, handles anonymous report of employees about accounting and auditing practices. Under SOX, SOX says if you are applying SOX in your company, means you are following the SOX completely, then your audit committee should have 3 independent members minimum. The 3 independent members should be there in your audit committee if you're following SOX, plus 1 financial expert. 1 financial expert should be there. If you're following SOX, then the audit committee requirements are 3 independent members plus 1 financial expert. CPA is a very good example of financial expert. CPA can easily act as a financial expert. Other than that, based on your knowledge, experience, even if you have like 5 to 10 years of experience working on the finance modules, yes, you can act as a financial expert, some other degrees also. So, but SOX is saying that 3 independent members plus 1 financial expert should be present. Now, it's when you will give the name to the board, PCAOB board, that this is the financial expert we are including in the audit committee, that time he will check whether he can act as a financial expert or not. If you have once written, please type yes, okay? Now comes the next section of SOX, that is section 302. Corporate responsibility for financial reports. Corporate responsibility for financial report. Any financial report, maybe it is quarterly, okay, when you submit the form 10Q, or it can be annually, that is, I think, the form 10K. These, all the financial reports, these must be signed or certified by the officers of the company, that is the CEO or CFO of company. They must sign it. If they're signing these reports, the financial reports, that means they are saying they have reviewed the report. When you sign it, that means you have read and you agree with the report, right? So they have reviewed the report. The report doesn't contain untrue statement or omit material information. The report doesn't contain, there is no untrue statement, and very important, there is no omission of material information. Then financial statements fairly present in all material respects the financial condition and results of operations of issuer. Right? Once they have reviewed the report, when you are signing something as CFO, CEO, the quarterly or annually financial reports, you are saying that you have reviewed it. There is no untrue statement, there is no omission of material statement, and the financial statements which I'm signing, they fairly present the financial position and the data of the company. Then fourth is, they will say that there is proper design, implementation, and conclusions are derived of what? Of internal controls. You will be signing and certifying about the internal controls also, that they are present, they are very well designed in the company, very well implemented. Okay, these are the financial reports which you submit annually or quarterly, demanding upon the, like, how much shareholders, how much like share capital you have, whether based on the share capital, the SOX will tell you whether you are required to submit the 6 monthly financial reports or annual financial reports. Based on that, the companies submit. Okay, and what SOX is saying, when you're submitting those, it shouldn't be that the management is forming and management is signing and issuing. It should be signed by the CEOs and the CFOs of the company. One more point is about the like internal controls, they are also commenting, is the disclosures. Disclosures are very important to comment on under internal auditing. Disclosures, they are saying that if there would have been any deficiency, all significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, they are reported. Material weaknesses are reported, and any fraud can be material or immaterial. Any type of fraud is reported. Everybody has written material weaknesses. There is something, just material weaknesses. The material weaknesses which we are discussing in this is about in the internal control. If there when you are auditing, or when you are able to find some material weaknesses in the internal control, that for example, one person who is drafting, he is checking also, he's submitting also, then in that case there is a lack of internal control. Okay, in the second case is, for example, one is making, there is no checking. Okay, the other is submitting, checking is missing. This is a material weakness. Internal control is present, one is making, the other is submitting, but the checking is not there. So in that case, there is a material weakness, and that should also be documented. We are talking about internal controls. Any fraud, material weakness only if material. Material weakness is reported only if material, and here we are talking about in terms of internal controls. Fraud, it can be material or immaterial. Any kind of fraud you have to report. Material weaknesses, but fraud of any nature you have to report. This financial information, SOX is dealing not in every company. SOX is dealing in public issuers, public fund issuers, like who are issuing a share capital which is dealt on the stock exchange. Similarly, for those companies, when you are dealing in stock exchange, mandatorily you are required to submit financial information, 10Q, 10Q. These are we submit to the SEC. Okay, so in that case, these are the things which we have to keep in mind. Whenever you submit a financial information, it is signed and certified by the CEO. The sign of the CEO means that they have reviewed it. There is no untrue statement. There is no omission. It fairly represents. Then the internal controls are present in the company. Then they will disclose also that the internal controls are present and there are no material weaknesses. And they will tell if there is some material weaknesses, they will report that also. Mandatorily, yes, it is mandatory actually. It is mandatory for the persons who are dealing on the public exchange. But voluntarily, if I'm not dealing, I want to apply, I can apply. But we are talking about those companies because it is mandatory for them. So I'm clearing this. Then there is one more section under SOX, section 404, management assessment of internal controls. Management will also assess about how the internal controls are present, where they are affected. Under SOX, each annual report is required to include, if you are following SOX, your annual report should include, number one, a statement that management is responsible for establishing and maintaining adequate internal control structure and procedures for financial reporting. It is not the duty of the external auditor to establish and maintain the internal controls. Whose duty it is? It is the duty of the, so there should be in annual report, there should be a statement from the management that this is the responsibility of the management to establish and maintain the adequate internal control. The auditor will only provide opinion on the internal controls. It will just provide the opinion. Otherwise, it is the responsibility of the management. Then management will also provide detail about the effectiveness of internal control. Effectiveness of internal control. Here one word is written that maintaining adequate internal control, that is fine. Then they have written procedures for financial reporting. What will be included in this case? For example, your company is following COSO. Then you have to mention, the management will mention that the reporting part we are following is the COSO structure in USA. Whatever the company is following, they have to mention the structure. Okay, the procedures. We will do in detail COSO. When the frauds happen, like in practice, what happens? Suppose something bad has happened with some company. Immediately, the ones who are affected, the ones who want to regulate further, they will start making a framework. Okay, like we have our institute, AICPA is there. The CM Institute, they also keep on developing the various frameworks which are then authorized by the government, and then they can be used by the companies. COSO is also one of those framework. We will do in detail. This is also related to the internal controls only. The public companies, they are required, it is a mandatory requirement when you are listed on SEC, it requires you to submit financial information quarterly or annually to the SEC. Okay, we are not going into detail, but these are the forms available. You have to fill in the details, whatever the information they are requiring from the companies. Like it can be related to the internal controls also. It can be related to the various assets also of the company, or it can be related to the long-term liabilities of the company, the information which they are demanding. So all that information we submit to the SEC. COSO is nothing, it's a framework. Like if the internal control, if the company is saying that we are following COSO, then that means they are saying that all the internal controls which are present in our company, they are as per the COSO framework. Whatever is provided in the COSO framework, that for purchases, this should be the procedure, we are following that procedure only. So COSO is nothing, it is a framework which is providing us the various policies, procedures, and rules to maintain the internal controls in our company. Why these frameworks are available? Why? As an individual, I may not be having the proper knowledge of internal controls. For example, I'm not from finance background. I have a company. I do not know what are all the internal controls which should be present. What will I do? I will check the COSO framework. COSO framework is a detailed internal control analysis, like in purchases, what the transaction should be recorded, how they should be done, how it should produce, what should be the authorities of one person, responsibility, delegation. Everything is mentioned in the COSO framework. So I can pick from there. It's a framework given. Shall we move on to the last part of Sarbanes-Oxley? The last section, as per relevant section, is the section 407. Section 407. This is disclosure of audit committee financial expert. Remember, SOX says it is mandatory to have one financial expert. One financial expert should be there in your audit committee as per SOX. Now, what are the disclosures required? Number one, financial reports. When you are issuing the financial reports, they should also mention about this financial expert. Must disclose. Yes, in technology and analytics, we have covered there also. Yes, Shravan, it is the same thing. Financial reports must disclose financial expert in committee. Who is the financial expert present in the committee? That should be disclosed. Or reason why committee is not having a financial expert. You have to disclose about the financial expert because it is mandatory. If for some reason he resigned, there is nobody available for 2-3 months, there is something which was out of the control of the company, we were not able to appoint properly the financial, you have to mention that reason also properly, that why we are not able to have a member in our audit committee who is a financial expert. Now, financial expert, I told you earlier also, it can be based on the knowledge, like the degree he's holding. If he is a CPA, he is automatically a financial expert. Based on the experience also, he has done BCom, but then after that, he is having a long 10-20 years of experience of working on the financial modules. He can act as a financial expert, past experience, okay? What knowledge a financial expert should be possessing? A financial expert should have understanding of GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. He should be able to understand them. He should have experience in preparation or auditing of financial statements. USCMA, you have to see on which profile you have worked. See, USCMA, I have already discussed in the orientation session also this point. If you would have asked me 15 years back, like can a US CMA work on which profile, I would have said costing. But now today, what happened? You could see your syllabus also. The scope has increased a lot. It is no more just a costing certification. It is more of a management certification. In your syllabus, you are doing auditing also, you are doing the financial reporting also, you are doing costing also. Then you are doing the main part, which is required, why CMA is required, planning and budgeting also. Okay, then strategic analysis also you are studying, technology you are studying. So the scope has increased. When you will see na vacancies for US CPA, you will see that as a financial analyst also the role is available, as cost accountant also the role is available, then as CFO of the company also you can act after doing US CMA. And then there are so many profiles you can work on nowadays. From costing, it has moved more to the management part. Now the company is not just appointing US CMA to do the costing part. They can appoint a simple accountant only. Okay, then why they need a CMA? Because they want to put the quotations, they want to know which tender is the best. Okay, out of the available options, in which we should invest, all the management options. So if your experience as US CMA for like 5-6 years, you are working on the finance modules in some part or other, in that case you can also act as a financial expert. Okay, so depends on which profile you have worked on. Then the third comes the writing here. One is the understanding of the gap should be there. Then experience in preparation or auditing of financial statements. Third is the application of gap. Then now comes the profile, which like if you have worked as experience with internal controls after clearing your CMA. Okay, you are discussing about the internal controls also. For example, you have experience of working with the internal controls. These are internal controls were on like purchases, sales, on these modules. In that case, again, yes, you can act as a financial expert also later on. Then comes the understanding of audit committee functions. This is very simple. If you are able to understand what you have to do as a financial expert in the company as audit committee, yes, you can act. Okay, so by this, we are able to cover the SOX today in today's lecture in detail. We have 15 minutes left. Okay, so any doubt in this internal controls we have discussed till now? Any doubt? Anybody? Okay, Vibha, cooling period is like when you cannot do the audit for that particular firm for which you were doing the audit. Okay, I will check in detail because like normally what happens, normally there is a trend that obviously when I'm appointing some person, he's working for 5 years, then he cannot work anymore because he needs some cooling off period. I will appoint some other person. Normally that person, the second person I am appointing, I will again appoint him for 5 years. It is beneficial for me, my company, right, for the longer period. But otherwise if you go like what is written in the SOX, I think in the SOX it is 2 years, but still I will check once again the cooling off period. The cooling off period actually what means, for example, I have worked 5 years for one as a CPA. I did the auditing of one company for 5 years. Now for next 2 years I cannot do it because cooling off period is required. Somebody else should be doing this. As an individual CA, the cooling period is 5 years. In India, yes, it is 5 years in India. We keep on doing the audits and all now. So in India, it is 5 years. But again, I will check what is the requirement under SOX. Okay. So any other doubt in internal controls? We have 10 minutes left. So in 10 minutes, I want to discuss one of the costing topic, that is ERP. Because of my poor health and the kids were not also well, so I think we skipped near about 2 weeks, because of which some of the topics of the costing are still pending. Securities Exchange Commission. Okay. Securities Exchange Commission, SEC. So I will be starting with one of the topic of the cost management. You can, it is not related to anything which we have done. These are the individual small topics. So you all can listen to it very carefully. So now today, what I'm gonna start with is the ERP. ERP, this is Enterprise Resource Planning. ERP. This system, it integrates data and processes. It's a single unified system. If I have to draw a figure, ERP, it deals with everything: finance, HR, supplier of raw material, then production and planning department. Then it also deals with the sales department, then inventory. So that means ERP package, it is a centralized one database system, centralized database system in which all the functions of the company are interrelated. Means we are dealing here cross-functional enterprise system. We can write also here. It is a cross-functional enterprise system. I am working in sales department, but if I want like how much production is planned for the year by the company, I can easily get the data. I do not have to write a question to the production department first, then somebody will take my file to the production department, then production department fill the details and it will send back. This is no longer required. There is a centralized database system. Automatically I can check what is the data which is provided by the production department, HR department, finance department, and accordingly I can take decision in my own function or department. So ERP actually makes it easy, quick, and efficient also. For example, if I know how much finances I am having, how much goods we need to produce, how much we need to keep as a stock, then accordingly I can purchase the order, place the order of raw material. If only 30 units of raw material are required in 1 month, why should I be investing in 30, 60 units of material? Because this 30 units investment I would have made somewhere else. Okay, so there is no blockage of funds. This is production and planning department. So ERP do what? It is providing me a system in which the information, the relevant information from various cross functions, from finance, HR, inventory, sales, everything is available in real time at one place. And based on that, for the whole company, just do not think about the function wise, for the whole company, whatever decision a particular person is taking in the company, that will be for the benefit of the company. Okay. Earlier, what used to happen? For example, I am in a sales department. I want somebody placed an order. I'm in the sales department. First of all, I sent a letter to the warehouse. I sent a letter to the warehouse to check the inventory available. Then I found 10 units. Order was for 40 units. Then I sent a letter again to whom? Production department, to check how much raw material is available and how much they are how much production they are planning. What is the planned production? I need 30 units. Then I sent a letter to the raw material department, how much raw material is available. Then I check with the finance department. Raw material available is just 800 kgs, but we require 1000 kgs. Do we have finance to buy other 20 kgs this month? I'm checking with the finance department. Then I am confirming the order. How long this process is taking? If immediately I'm saying, yes, 40 units, we will supply you in 5 days. But when I checked the whole cycle, there was a shortage of finance. That was the bottleneck. There was a shortage of finance. I was not able to deliver the order. Customer unsatisfaction. So there is a proper chain. It was actually time consuming. But with ERP, what has happened? I need not to go anywhere. There is one centralized database here. I need to check any information for placing the order, inventory, I will just get from here immediately. Nowadays, the inventory is up to date. How much is there in the inventory? What is in the production schedule is also available. If the goods are like half manufactured, the computer will tell that they are 50% complete processes. Means still 50% is left and that will be completed in how many days? That will also be told. So these softwares, these ERP systems, it has actually made it very easy. And with this, what are the benefits? Improved process efficiency, improved process efficiency. Second, since I have all the data in my hand, I can do improved forecasting. How forecasting is possible? Because better information is available to me, real time information is available, latest data is available, so I can easily make the forecast. The other benefit, improved collaboration. Improved collaboration. This is because of centralized database. Since there is improved collaboration, means decision making is improved a lot. Decision making is improved a lot because maximum information is available. Then is the improved connectivity. Because of ERP, all the functions feel interconnected. They can easily communicate. They can easily fetch the data. There is improved connectivity. Employees, you can write here, employees can easily access the data entered. Then fifth is improved productivity. Instead of wasting the time in how much raw material is available, how many days it will take, where the material has reached, what are the finances, this information is now readily available. Okay, we can just focus on the productivity. We already know the finances, we already know the vendors, we already know the suppliers, the lead time, how much time they will take, everything is known to us. We can focus on the production, so it will improve the productivity also. Sixth is the improved customer service. In one click, I can tell the customer when your order was placed, what you have received, what are the complete complaints you have lodged to the HR department. Everything is there at one place, and easily we can provide the services required by the customers because we have the full history. The right word here will be we have the history of customers. Okay, so this is the one little topic we did about the costing part. If the time is available, tomorrow also we'll do the theory of constraints. Okay, I hope the lecture was helpful for you all. Now you can, when you will try to read from the book, okay, I will show the first 2 points. Improved process efficiency. And the second is the improved forecasting. Okay, improved process efficiency. Anyone who can just give me one example how? Improved process efficiency. Ayush is saying work will be done on time. Yes, Ayush, work will be done on time. Wow. How? Because there is no repetition of work. That's why you will be able to do the work on time. Again and again, you do not have to enter the data. Once the customer has entered the order is entered by the customer. It is used by the sales department, production department, raw material department. Everybody is using the same data. So what is happening? There is no redundant activities. Yes, this is an integrated process. Workaround will not be available. Maharanjan, workaround will not be available? Yes, repetitiveness will not be there. We'll be starting the new topic in internal controls tomorrow. Okay, that is the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, FCPA. After that, the other things, see, this SOX is the main part in this chapter and the difficult part also. After that, the things are very general. Tomorrow's lecture will be really easy. Okay, so everybody take care. Enjoy your weekends. Study is also enjoyment. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. And also for the new batch, I would like to mention that whenever you study, keep on making notes. They will be really helpful in your final revision part. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.